So Beatriz is a regional medical lead for Abbott, and she's going to give us an interesting presentation.
Well, thank you so much for having me and welcome everyone. I would like to thank Leslie, HUK, and all of the team for inviting me to present on this topic today. And today we'll be discussing the unique nutritional needs that come with aging. And I will aim to share some practical tips to support healthy aging through diet and lifestyle as well. Here's the agenda for today. I'm going to talk about malnutrition and basically understand what it means and its impact. Look at some key nutrients that are essential for older adults, some simple ways to boost nutrition every day. I also want to touch base a bit on how oral health can affect nutrition and also just share some additional support and resources. So to start, what is malnutrition? Basically, malnutrition is when the body doesn't get the right balance of nutrients, and this leads to a harmful effect on body function and health. It is actually much more prevalent than we may think, and in the UK, 1.3 million people over the age of 65 suffer from malnutrition, most of which actually live in the community. But this doesn't only happen in the community, it is also very prevalent in hospital settings. So it's been shown that approximately 32% of people in the UK over the age of 65 actually have malnutrition on admission to hospital, and this actually gets increased if these people come from care homes directly. So it is actually very prevalent and something to really look out for. There are lots of different causes of malnutrition, and this is basically when we get that imbalance between what we eat and what we spend. So if we actually focus on what we eat, malnutrition can just come from lots of different causes, mainly coming from insufficient dietary intake. So this could happen if we have an illness or some kind of anything that could lead to lower appetite. So things like disability, taking some medications, some symptoms from illnesses like vomiting, diarrhea, having some nausea, that all of this is going to lead to that reduced food intake, and also some psychosocial factors. So things like social isolation could really affect eating habits, even something like not being able to go to the shop, not being able to cook, losing a partner that used to do the cooking. So lots of different factors that can really lead to this increased risk of malnutrition. And it's actually been shown that just older adults don't eat as much as they should. So more than 50% of hospitalized patients don't eat their full meals. And only like a quarter of nursing home residents eat half of their meals. So we really need to emphasize the importance of eating what we need to eat. These are some of the signs of malnutrition, just sometimes some things to look out for yourselves, for your family members, people you care for. So things like low body weight, unintentional weight loss, feeling fatigued and tired, low appetite, difficulty chewing or swallowing. It could also really affect malnutrition as well, because we're just not going to want to eat as much if we have that fear of choking or just not chewing properly and just not eating as well as we should. And also loose dentures could also affect this. Just to share some of the consequences of malnutrition, malnutrition has a very, very detrimental impact on health outcomes. So starting from weight loss onto muscle loss. So muscle is going to be very important to keep our strength, our balance, our movement, but also it's a very important metabolic organ. So if we lose muscle, then we're just not going to be able to do the activities of daily living. This could lead to things like physical disability, need for dependent care. If we become malnourished and have muscle loss, we're going to be at higher risk of falls and fractures, and that has a really bad impact in health of older adults. Also, something like impaired wound healing is going to be very important, because if we're not able to close a wound, that is going to lead to increased risk of infections as well. And if we have increased risk of infection, of pneumonia, all of that could actually lead to things like hospitalization, readmissions, and even death. So malnutrition is going to be very important in terms of the consequences. And not only for the patient, but it is also very impactful for the healthcare system. So it's actually been shown that malnutrition costs the NHS £19.6 billion a year. So that is approximately 15% of the total expenditure on health and social care. And this is especially important in patients over the age of 65, because they account for over half of the total costs of malnutrition in England. It's been shown that treating a person that is malnourished costs 3 times more than treating a person that is not malnourished. So it's really important. We know how the NHS is at the moment and the difficulties that there are for some patients to receive the treatment that they need. So it does make an impact, the fact of being malnourished. So just to summarize a little bit this section that I've been explaining about, malnutrition is something that is very prevalent, especially in the community. It could be a consequence of inadequate eating, and it can lead to things like muscle loss, and then morbidity and mortality. And it is actually everyone's responsibility. We can't wait for the dietitian to prescribe some nutrition or to give some special advice. We need to make sure that we eat everything that we should be eating, and that we help each other, and just let's use every opportunity to support adequate nutrition. So as we age, our nutritional needs also change, and meeting those needs is going to be critical to maintaining health and quality of life. So I'm just going to explain some of these key nutrients that we need to look out for. So these are some of the nutrition recommendations for older adults. If we start looking at energy needs, older adults need 30 calories per kilogram of body weight per day. So if we want to translate this on what a person would be like, if we take an example of a male that weighs 70 kilograms, that would mean that this person requires 2,100 calories per day. In terms of protein, actually older adults need more protein than younger counterparts. So even a healthy older adult will need at least 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So that would mean, again, on our 70 kilogram male, at least 70 grams of protein per day, up to 100 or more. We need to also take into account all of the vitamins and minerals. We need a varied and balanced diet to make sure that we get all of the vitamins and minerals that we need in our diet. And one that is especially important as we age is vitamin D, and we all need to take 1,000 international units a day for vitamin D. And the last thing that we can't forget about is hydration. So this needs to be individualized and comprehensive, and just not forget that we need to drink as well. And hydration is going to be very important as we age. So going into a bit more detail of each of them, if my slides move. There we go. Protein is going to be very important for lots of functions in the body, starting with building muscle. I've already explained the importance of muscle for strength, mobility, and balance, but also to repair tissue. And we go back to that increased risk of infection if we can't close wounds. It is very important that we keep organ healthy this way. But also proteins are going to be key to produce things like hormones, enzymes, antibodies. So that's going to be very important for lots of metabolic reactions, and also for our immunity. And it also helps supporting bone and joint health. So really important that on every meal that we have some high protein foods. Some of these include things like meat, fish, eggs, milk, and other dairy products, things like nuts, pulses, tofu, soybeans. So just something to bear in mind, that we should aim to have a high protein food in every single meal that we do. It's actually been shown that protein intake is reduced in older adults for lots of different reasons, but starting with reduced appetite and that ability to chew, think that one of the high protein foods is meat. For example, and fish. We need good dentures to be able to eat meat in many forms. So if someone has difficulties chewing, they're not going to choose meat as the first option to eat. So that is just one of the reasons why someone would have a lower protein intake. But also things like physiological changes, having different medical conditions, physical disability, also that socioeconomic aspect. Some of these foods are actually quite expensive compared to others, and just being able to cook those meals is going to be tricky in some situations. And also older adults have increased satiation after meals, which means that they just get full quickly, and just having very big meals is not going to be efficient, and they're just not going to want to eat it. And despite this, actually protein needs are increasing in older adults. I did mention earlier that older adults have increased protein requirements versus younger people. And this is basically because our body is just not as effective as utilizing the protein that comes from the diet and kind of like metabolizing that in the body. But also if someone has any underlying condition and any other disease that is going to increase that metabolism and catabolism, they're just going to need more protein. Also, as we age, we lose muscle mass just naturally. Basically from the age of 40, we start losing muscle. So we need to eat that extra protein to make sure that we counteract for these losses. And then the other nutrient that I mentioned earlier is vitamin D. So vitamin D is going to be very important, especially during the winter months. And it's actually been shown that it has an important relationship with muscle mass. So older adults are specifically at risk of low vitamin D because they may not go out that much and to get it kind of like from the sunlight, which is the main source of vitamin D that we get, but also because the body is not going to be as efficient to synthesize vitamin D from the sunlight, quite similar to with protein. Our bodies are just not as efficient. So it's important to try to eat some foods that are going to be fortified in vitamin D, things like fortified milk, cheese, eggs, fish liver oil, and fatty fish. But in many occasions, this is just not going to be sufficient. And actually, we all are recommended to take vitamin D supplements over the winter months at least. So I'm just going to look at some nutritional interventions that could help to support healthy aging. So starting with food-based intervention, I'm just showing there some examples of some little changes that could be done to just to increase the calorie intake of all of our meals, of the daily meals. So rather than doing 3 main meals a day, it could be more efficient to just do small frequent meals. And all of this is called food fortification. So we're just trying to make the most of the foods that we're going to eat on a daily basis. So things like fortifying milk, and this is adding a couple of scoops of powdered milk onto normal milk, doing toast rather than just with butter, with peanut butter or a nut butter to increase that protein, or doing beans on toast, or adding eggs to this. If we're going to make some kind of casseroles or soups, let's add some nuts to it, let's add some pulses. So it's just adding some things that are going to be more protein and calorific to normal meals to just make them a bit more nutrient dense. And all of these usually help to increase that calorie content in the diet. However, sometimes this may just not be enough, and we may need to look at consuming oral nutritional supplements. These are usually prescribed by healthcare professionals, and they may be a better option to food fortification in some cases because they are balanced and they provide all of the nutrients. Some of the recommendations from food fortification is adding things like cream, butter, syrup, so things that may not be as nutritionally balanced and not having perhaps all of the vitamins and minerals that should be recommended or the amount of protein recommended. So oral nutritional supplements are actually going to be more balanced, and they provide energy, protein, and micronutrients. And there's actually lots of evidence in the literature showing that they provide lots of clinical benefits to patients. And they are also available in lots of different formulations, so and flavors as well. So it's going to be really easy to find one that is the right for the patient. So I just wanted to share a little example of how to achieve protein requirements. So if we go back to that 70 kilogram male that we looked at earlier, and considering that he needs 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, and we're looking at around 100 grams of protein per day. I've just put there two options of how to achieve those protein requirements through diet alone and diet with oral nutritional supplements. And as you can see on the diet alone, where we need to eat to add lots of meat, fish, and other high protein sources, it might be a little bit overwhelming to achieve these nutritional requirements. Whereas when we add oral nutritional supplements into the mix, which we could get up to kind of like, for example, 40 grams of protein just through these supplements, the diet may just seem a bit more achievable for some patients. So it's just something to bear in mind that it is effective. And then the last thing to remember is hydration. We can't forget about hydration. And we should aim to drink 6 to 8 cups of fluid a day. It doesn't mean that it has to be water. It could be tea, coffee, juice, oral nutritional supplements. But it's just important to make it the right way for you to be able to drink. And if it has to be to schedule your drinks and just have a few sips every half an hour, for example, or using a straw, using a specific bottle, your favorite cup, or whatever that might be, let's do it. But let's not forget about the importance of hydration. Really important for skin integrity and just making and keeping all of our organs healthy. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is about maintaining oral health. So really important to keep teeth healthy, and we can do this by cleaning them twice a day at least, and also visiting your dentist regularly for checkups, even if you've got full dentures. So teeth problems can really affect our diet, so it has detrimental effects in life, but also it can really affect malnutrition, because if we are not chewing things properly because we've got problems with dentition, we're not going to be able to get all of those nutrients, and it can also affect the absorption of some medications, so it can really increase the risk of malnutrition. It's actually been shown that at least 50% of care home residents have tooth decay, so really something that is important and quite prevalent in this population. And some people to especially look out for are going to be the patients with long-term conditions like arthritis, Parkinson's, or dementia, because they may find it harder to use a toothbrush. So just important to provide this support as well with oral health. And then finally, I just wanted to share some additional support and resources developed by different organizations in the UK, like Patients Association, Age UK, Malnutrition Task Force, or even the government. And Abbott has also put together some information on how to identify malnutrition and additional resources, just to make sure that nutrition is part of the patient care, and that we remember that we need to look for it and we need to do something about it. So that is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Thank you. That was interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If people have got some questions, maybe they could email you, because
Yes,
a lot of
absolutely.
people will be watching this offline.
Yes, absolutely.
So I really enjoyed that. I specifically liked when you were saying about how much people were actually eating in care homes. I think that we need to be really mindful of that in care homes and hospitals, because, you know, it's a big thing, as Simon mentioned, getting the food from the plate to the mouth. You know, very often we serve up lovely food, but we don't take the next step to get
Yes,
it
absolutely. And so many people will need that help to get the food into the mouth. So it's just making sure that we're there and that we observe the patients and we don't wait until that malnutrition has happened. Like, it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that the patient eats the food.
Exactly. And, you know, that's something that we're trying to campaign for this week, to make sure that everybody works together to look at how we can focus and tackle malnutrition. Thank you very much indeed for giving your time today. That was lovely.
Thank you.